On a cold January morning in 1965, London fell silent as the world learned that Winston Churchill had died. The city's usual rhythm stopped, shops remained closed, buses halted on empty streets, and people gathered in quiet groups, united by grief. It wasn't just Britain mourning a leader. It was the world saying farewell to an era defined by Churchill's courage and defiance. For a brief moment, politics and divisions faded, replaced by the shared memory of a man whose words had once inspired hope in the darkest hours. As mourners laid flowers and bowed their heads, the city remembered not just a prime minister, but the spirit of resistance and resilience he embodied. Churchill's passing was more than a loss. It was a reminder of the extraordinary power one person's will can have on history. This is the story of Winston Churchill, his legend, his humanity, and the enduring lessons he left for all of us. In the days following Churchill's death, Britain was swept by an overwhelming wave of mourning. Thousands lined the streets as his funeral procession moved slowly through London, every face etched with loss and gratitude. Newspapers filled their pages with stories, not just of a statesman, but of a man whose words and presence had steadied the nation in its darkest hours. At St. Paul's Cathedral, world leaders gathered alongside ordinary citizens, united by respect for a leader who had embodied their hopes during war and uncertainty. In homes, pubs, and schools across the country, people shared memories of nights huddled by the radio, listening to Churchill's voice break through fear with courage and resolve. For a brief moment, the divisions of class politics and region faded away, replaced by a shared sense of pride and sorrow. As his coffin passed, draped in the Union Jack, there was not just silence, but the quiet knowledge that an era of strength and defiance had come to an end. Churchill's true legacy was forged in the crucible of war, when Britain stood alone against a seemingly unstoppable enemy. In May 1940, with the fall of France looming and the threat of Nazi invasion growing every day, Churchill took the helm as Prime Minister. His words, spoken on the radio and echoed in Parliament, became the heartbeat of a nation under siege. "We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds." These weren't just speeches, they were lifelines. For ordinary Britons, from soldiers in the trenches to mothers in bomb shelters, Churchill's unwavering resolve transformed fear into courage and despair into hope. Against overwhelming odds, he inspired a country to endure the Blitz, to believe in ultimate victory, and to never ever surrender. His leadership proved that in humanity's darkest hours, the voice of a single leader could unite millions and change the course of history. History often turns on a single decision, and never was this more true than in 1940. Had Churchill not stood firm, Britain might have sought peace with Hitler, changing the course of the entire world. Many in government, worn down by defeat and fear, considered negotiation or surrender. But Churchill refused, insisting that the fight continue at all costs. Without his unyielding resolve, the swastika might have flown over London, Paris, and far beyond. The survival of British democracy, and perhaps all of Europe, rested on the determination of one man who would not give in. In that pivotal moment, Churchill's courage was not just leadership. It was the fragile barrier between freedom and tyranny for millions. Churchill became far more than a prime minister. He was a living symbol of Britain's resilience and spirit. Through bombings and blackouts, his image and words reassured a battered nation. He walked the ruins with citizens, offered comfort to the wounded, and cracked jokes in the darkest hours. The V for victory sign, his ever-present cigar, and his bulldog determination inspired people everywhere to keep going no matter the odds. Even today, Churchill's likeness stands in the hearts and squares of countless cities, reminding us that leadership is as much about example and connection as it is about strategy. His legacy endures not just in the history books, but in every story of courage when hope seems lost. Yet Churchill's legacy is complex and often controversial. He was a man of soaring vision and fierce determination, but also held views and made decisions that are debated and sometimes condemned today. From his controversial role in the Gallipoli campaign to his stance on empire and his response to the Bengal famine, Churchill was shaped by the prejudices and politics of his time. While millions see him as a hero, others remember the suffering and consequences tied to his leadership. True greatness is never without shadow, and Churchill's story reminds us that even the most inspiring figures are human, capable of both remarkable achievement and painful error. To understand his impact is to reckon with the full measure of his life, the triumphs that changed the world and the flaws that demand honest reflection. Churchill's influence reached far beyond Britain's shores. At his funeral, world leaders stood shoulder to shoulder with ordinary people, honoring a man whose decisions shaped the fate of nations. In the United States, he was celebrated as a steadfast ally in freedom's fight. In Israel, remembered as a supporter of statehood. Across Europe and the Commonwealth, his words and image became enduring symbols of hope and resilience. Yet in places touched by the shadow of colonialism, Churchill's legacy remains complex, admired by some, questioned by others. Even so, the story of Churchill is told in schools, inscribed in monuments, and echoed in speeches across continents. His life reminds us that the impact of true leadership transcends borders and generations, leaving a mark on the world that is both lasting and deeply human. In every age, new challenges test the resilience of nations and the courage of their leaders. Churchill's example endures because he showed that determination and vision can turn fear into resolve and adversity into unity. His words, spoken during bombings and uncertainty, still inspire people facing today's crises, from political upheaval to public health emergencies. Around the world, leaders and citizens alike look to Churchill's story as a guide for standing strong in the face of the unknown. His life is a reminder that ordinary people, united by purpose and courage, can withstand even the darkest times. In remembering Churchill, we are reminded to find our own voice, to refuse surrender, and to lead with hope, no matter the odds. Looking back on Winston Churchill's life, we see a leader who shaped the fate of nations through courage, conviction, and unwavering spirit. His story is not only one of victory and resilience, but also of complexity and humanity. Churchill reminds us that greatness is not perfection, it is perseverance in the face of doubt, and hope when hope seems lost. Today, his legacy lives on in every act of bravery, every moment of unity, and every voice that refuses to yield to despair. As history moves forward, the lessons of Churchill endure, urging each of us to meet the storms of our own time with the same unbreakable resolve. In that way, his life truly changed the world and inspires us to do the same.